So we need to move on to the Cunningham. And the Cunningham is at the gooseneck here between the mast and the main boom. And if I just move forward a little bit, it is this line that comes up here and attaches right at this point here. Okay, at the front of the sail, and by pulling this, we're going to be changing the draft position. So let's have a look at what I mean by draft. Okay, so the draft is where the curvature of the sail is positioned. So the draft can be forward, which means that it's closer to the mast, or it can be aft, which means it's further away from the mast. So what does the Cunningham do? Well, by pulling on the Cunningham, what we're going to do is we're going to make some, I guess they're horizontal lines or stretch marks into the sailcloth. And this forces the draft forward. And if we reduce the Cunningham, what it does is it releases it more, and the draft will tend to go more to an aft position. So why is this important? Well, let's think about it. Well, in the first instance up here, we can see that the draft has been set forward. The mast is up on the right hand side here, and this allows a larger angle of incidence, which is how the wind will come into the sail. This will allow the helmsman to be much more forgiving in rough conditions, but it's not very good for being close hauled. Because of this angle of incidence here, it's much harder to stay at a close haul position. So if you want to be more close hauled, you set the draft a little bit more to aft or in the middle. You don't go too far aft, and this allows a much better pointing position, but it's much harder to steer, and it's much more unforgiving in rougher conditions. The other thing to say here is that the halyard, the main halyard, also can act as pulling the draft closer or forward. But the big difference here is that when you use the halyard, you're really affecting the whole of the sail, whereas with the Cunningham, you're basically only affecting the lower half of the sail. So the Cunningham is usually much more effective at well, not affecting the twist up the top, which the halyard would do, and just controlling the draft in the lower half of the sail. So in heavier conditions, we would push the draft forward by pulling the Cunningham. In lighter conditions, you would set the draft back a little bit further, but obviously you would need to play with that to find the optimum speed and conditions for the conditions that are around you. So let's just get configured again. Okay, and we're fully done there. If I use the Cunningham in this position here, I can, as you can see in the middle and the lower, you can see that I'm changing the draft. pretty hard to tell on this graphic, but that's basically what it's supposed to be doing. So in summary, sorry for my drawing, it's not very good, but the use of the Cunningham to either move the draft forward or move the draft back is thus. So in heavier wind conditions, you want to move the draft forward a bit more, gives a larger angle of attack or incidence. This means that the sail won't collapse as easily. It also gives a lot more stability in these conditions. In Sailaway, it's 70%. Usually we reverse this in real life, and this would be 30%, but okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. In normal conditions, have your draft back a bit. Usually around about 50% is a good thing, but you can play with that. And then in very light wind conditions, you want your draft to be even a little bit further back, so around about 40% in Sailaway. So the Cunningham is a tool to move the draft forward or back for varying wind conditions. Okay, so let's see how Sailaway portrays this as compared to the theory. During my testing, honestly, I didn't see that much difference in terms of speed or pointing ability. Maybe more testing is needed. Maybe I'm not understanding it as well as I should. Some of it even seemed a little reversed in some instances. It's something that I want to spend a little bit more time looking into before I make a definitive statement about it. The Cunningham is not going to give you that much difference in this simulator. So for now, I would suggest just to line it up with what's being told to you on the trim tab, and maybe in the future more people will jump in and actually test this a little bit more to see whether it is working as it's advertised. Creating a simulator is not an easy thing, and I take my hat off to the devs, but there is something that's a little bit strange. I haven't had enough time to test in all different varying conditions, and I guess that needs to be done before I can say that this is something that needs to be looked into more. Okay, thank you, and thank you for watching.